Welcome back to Redefining Us. I'm your host, Stephanie Konter-O'Hara. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And today I have with me Kellee Meyers, who is also a licensed professional counselor. Kellee is passionate about motherhood and nourishing mothers, the power of spirituality and ceremony to process grief around motherhood and spiritual trauma and post-traumatic growth. She loves anything related to the mountains, cats, and coffee. So thank you very much for joining us today, Kellee.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. It's an honor.
Well, I appreciate that. So I just want to kick off by talking about, what brought you to this place that you feel like you want to talk to people about the closing the bones ceremony and what brought you to ceremony, because that's the theme of today's podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just so honored to be here and appreciate all these taboo topics that you talk about that are so real and alive for all of us as mothers and in the fertility journey. And grief being one of them that we don't love to talk about, but I'm here to hopefully make it easier for people because we
Yeah,
all have it. Yeah.
for sure. Whether it's around, I mean, you can grieve so many things, I think. The life you had before motherhood, the ideas that you had about motherhood, like the relationship that you had with your partner, and now you have a different relationship with your partner in motherhood. So
Yes, yes, yes.
I imagine a lot of that has to do with the shedding of expectations and your journey and all of the things. But
Yeah, and how I came to ceremony. I am a mother of two. I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I remember as I was pregnant with my first, talking to a friend of mine who actually a clinical supervisor I had at the time, who was a mother. And she said it was the most life-changing thing she had ever been through. And at the time, I couldn't really grasp that because it was like, well, I'm still going to be me. What's going to change? It's one of those things that you can have this idea, but until you're in it, then it gets really real. And how I came to ceremony, I think I'm someone who's always gravitated towards ceremony. I'm someone who, if I were to think of other things I would do with my life besides being a therapist, as a child, I considered becoming a pastor. That's very much not a fit for me anymore, but I've always gravitated towards spirituality and things with a lot of meaning. And I've also considered being a wedding planner, but I'm not up for a career change. So this is kind of the beautiful blend of bringing meaning into ritual because some experiences are beyond words.
yeah, for sure. And I think we always try to put words to something to maybe explain ourselves or explain our experience. But I love what you just said, that idea that like some things can't be put into words, because I oftentimes feel like that when I'm trying to express myself to my therapist or my husband or a friend.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to describe what I'm feeling or what this experience is for me.
exactly. And that's something I so appreciate about you naming to myself and your other listeners is that transition into motherhood is so expansive. It's beyond words, right? And talk therapy is wonderful and it has its limits of what it can offer. And I just feel so lucky. I kind of feel like the ceremony came to me, not the other way around, is how I view it. But to share a little bit more about how I learned about closing of the bones, and I'll say what that is because I know it's a really provocative name that people are wondering what the heck is that. So I had a pretty easy ish, as easy as birth can be with my first, though I did have a C-section. But I felt pretty good physically 4 weeks after. But my second birth, whole different ballgame. I had another unplanned C-section, and for me, it was really important to have a vaginal birth after C-section, but that wasn't in the cards. So that was my big grief that I had and have had that I was introduced to this ceremony. So I want to give a shout out to a wonderful organization in Boulder. They're called Sanctuary Doulas, and they are not only a birth center, they had a breastfeeding circle that I was going to because my first, what was traumatic with him is he developed allergies and eczema 4 months into his life. And that's something we continue to battle. And so I was going to this breastfeeding circle, and they also had a postpartum support group. So I was going to that, and one of the counselors there told me about the ceremony, and my ears perked up. I'm someone who believes in the power of ceremony. And so that's where I was first introduced to it, was engaging with my own support in a really difficult time in my life.
Yeah, that sounds like a great place. It really sounds like it has a lot of options for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess what do you think for you was the point where you were like, I need to do this? Like you said that it's called to you, but yes, I'm
Mm,
hoping if you can put into words, maybe it's not even able to
yeah.
put into words, but what was the point where you're like, I need to commit to doing this for myself?
Yeah. I think it was the facilitator at the time saying she was completing her master's and she was writing a dissertation on using ceremony for maternal mental health and helping moms grieve. And when I heard hearing moms grieve, I was like, every part of my body was like, yes, because I was grieving my physical recovery. The short story is I had my bladder nicked, I had a stitch put over my ureter. I had even considered, and I am not a litigious person, but I considered taking legal action. I think whenever we go through pain in life, there's nothing more healing than having our pain be heard and taking action over pieces that we did not have choice or control over. And so the closing the bonds really is that. It's a way to honor our grief and our celebration. Like sometimes I find myself even feel like I'm being too doomsday about motherhood or something. And I have to remind myself we're allowed to have our gratitude and our celebration too. And I love being a mother. And this last year, having our second has rocked me in a way that I never anticipated.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the messages that I think are often given to women about, just be grateful you're alive, just be grateful your
Yeah.
baby's healthy. And it's like, okay, I can be those things, but I can also be sad and I can also grieve what I wanted and what ended up happening. And
Mhm.
maybe even anger mixed in there too about like
Absolutely.
feeling robbed of an experience and feeling anger about being in pain.
Yeah, I think we all know what grief is, right? We have this understanding, but to listeners who might be thinking, well, I don't know that I have grief. If you have anger, if you have sadness, those are those are grief. Anger around, yeah, how you just beautifully put it, of getting something you didn't intend to get or vice versa.
Mhm. Yeah, I was hoping you could maybe explain to the listener a little bit about what the ceremony is like or the process so they can have a further understanding of what it
Yeah.
looks like.
I would love to. So basically, it's a 4-hour ceremony in your own home. I am open to facilitating it for people in a place other than their home. If they don't want to do it there, you could do an Airbnb or a friend's house. And it's a way for the mother to be nourished. I think we have in our culture a severe lack of ceremony to nourish the mother in that transition into motherhood and through motherhood. This is often done as an early postpartum ceremony up to, a few years after, but it can be done at any time. I just did one for someone who had her third when her third was 6 months old. So it's 4 hours of being nourished in your home in a small group of people you trust. If you would like to invite others, I encourage people to invite a few other people because that's what I find the most healing. I've done group therapy for many years, and I know you do too. And I love individual therapy, but there's nothing more powerful than an entire group hearing your pain and reflecting your strengths. And so it's an opportunity to tell your story of who you are now, how pregnancy was, sharing all those big pieces. Because in our culture, when I think of ceremony, we have weddings to honor that transition. We have funerals, and other cultures have other ones, around turning 15. But how do we not have one for the most expansive change a person's body and being and a role can undergo? And so that's where this comes in.
Yeah. Been talking to a lot of women about what being a woman is about and motherhood and the words like receiving and creating really have come back to me over and over again in conversations. And it really sounds like this is an opportunity for a mother to receive like
Absolutely.
nourishment and kind of honor the creating of this new life and new experience. And yeah, I don't know. Hearing you talk about it made me think of those two words that I kind of keep hearing over and over again about what feminine energy is all about.
Yes, this is all about the divine feminine, the healthy feminine, and the healthy masculine too, but heavy on that. The mother receiving mothering, hence the title of the episode, of that early postpartum period, especially anyone who's been through it knows how taxing it is, even in the most equitable relationship, that there are things only the mother can provide. And so it is what it is. And many women, claim it with pride and they want to give to this new beautiful being that they created. And it's a lot. It's exhausting in every way imaginable. And I don't know about you, but I've never left a baby shower feeling nourished. I maybe felt celebrated. I maybe felt, people were excited, but I was doing the dishes afterwards and it wasn't nourishing. All I wanted when I was pregnant with my second was to be in my living room with some of my closest friends and do a tarot reading. And that's what we did. So when you think closing the bones, 4 hours of nourishment in your home, you can think of that. Whatever rituals are meaningful for you. I identify as interfaith. I have a Christian background. I also have attended lots of New Thought metaphysical communities like Unity, and I'm willing to bring in whatever practices are already meaningful for a woman to really feel nourished. So that first hour is having tea or coffee and sharing whatever the woman wants to share about what's been hard. And also, it's also room to celebrate of what are they proud of, what's going well. But our culture is pretty good at that, of celebrating. So this is really space to talk about all of it, the other hard parts too.
Yeah. I imagine some prep would go into this too. So a woman's not just entering into the space of, I'm
Exactly.
not sure how to do this.
Exactly. Yes. And I feel strongly about that. I know other people in this space doing closing of the bones without that preparation, and no judgment to them, but I feel passionate about offering that preparation. So I facilitate 3 preparatory sessions for anyone who's interested in doing this. For us, you can think of it, it's not therapy, but bringing in all my therapy skills of helping a woman tell her story of what is she most proud of and what's been hardest. So for me, it was powerful to talk about having 2 unplanned C-sections and all the things that went wrong, needing multiple surgeries in those first 3 months. And then also to talk about, I had a 2-year-old at the time, talk about what it was like to have my own activated, needing to bring an EpiPen everywhere and be really focusing on, is my child okay? Which brought up some stuff I won't go into, but touched on dynamics from my childhood. And so the first hour is just talking about whatever you want to share. And then us building in those rituals that we would have already talked about in those 3 preparatory sessions to ultimately help a woman let go of a painful story that is hard to let go of, which we know as therapists, right? The kind of trauma looping of a story that's trying to work itself out. And sometimes when it's not working itself out, it's because it hasn't been witnessed enough. And so this is helpful for that, for a group of people to really hear the pain points to help that story shift back towards empowerment, back towards a woman's ultimate power.
Yeah. The word witnessing made me have a tangent thought about
Yeah,
the kind of going back to that group therapy thing that you were talking about, like the power of having other people hear you or see you, like really see you. Not just like, oh, I see you're sitting in the room, but see you in a meaningful and deep way. And that in itself being a part of the healing.
absolutely. Yes. And seeing in ways that, again, don't always involve words. So when I think ritual, I think those tools that we have that help us move emotion and be with emotion is music. Music is so powerful. So that's built in of, a song of a person's choosing. I have a whole motherhood playlist actually, if people need ideas. That was shared with me when I went through this process, and it's still a playlist I listen to all the time. So, and then I really want to talk about the somatic part of the intervention. So why it's called closing the bones. Took me a while to get there, but
No
thanks
worries.
for hanging on there, listeners. So the idea is, or the reality is, our bones actually open when giving birth. And I met with a physical therapist recently who told me even though I had C-sections, the bones still had to open some because of the laboring process. And so I do actually know of some physical therapists who, if anyone's needing pelvic floor therapy afterward to help with that actual physical closing, where my skill set comes in is the emotional closing of naming when you're in a new season or era of motherhood. So I'd love to talk about when this can be powerful.
Yeah.
But the somatic component is like 20 minutes where I bring 7 cloths, these beautiful, colorful cloths that you get swaddled. And so we swaddle our babies. Why don't we nourish and swaddle our mamas? And it's just a relaxing experience. There can be light music in the background, and you're adorned with flowers. You're lying on the ground, just soaking in, having just shared your story, soaking in the support. That's what was most powerful for me, was just feeling these women sit around me and be thinking of me and holding me in love. So powerful.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of this idea that you just mentioned, like women holding you in love. And I don't know, it almost brought a little bit of like a tear to my eye, like thinking about that and how,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm getting emotional, how important I think that
Yeah.
is for everyone to feel that, but especially after
Yeah.
something where you're literally giving every ounce of love that you can to a baby. It's so important,
Yeah.
I think, to know that it's possible or that other women are also wanting to give that back to you.
Yes. Yes. And I am touched by your tears. And there's never a dry eye in the house when we when we do this. And it's powerful. It's
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like a beautiful experience for everybody involved.
it is. Yeah. And because it brings stuff up and out, and there's often a relief at the end of that. I know you practice EMDR, I do too. And for listeners who have done that, it's like when there's a powerful EMDR session, it feels like that. It's like, right? Like I let go of something. I don't even know what, but I let go of something, and
Yes, like
thank
a,
God.
yeah, collective breath, everyone, like together now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we often do that intense experience in the middle. And then that last hour is just eating a meal together and that debriefing, the coming down. I always prep women, you're going to be exhausted, just like an EMDR session. So
Yeah.
hopefully you can have a nap afterwards.
Yeah.
And then about a month later is when I find it to be most useful, is doing a follow-up 1 hour integration session to talk about the impact of what it helped a mother release, what it reminded her of, all the yummy positive impacts. And then if stuff is left to be tended to, which there often is, if the woman isn't already feeling supported enough, what is enough support? We always need more village. I have a big network. I'm happy to, share and get that person connected if I don't have any therapy openings,
Oh,
to groups like your wonderful group.
well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know what's coming up for me here as you're explaining, even like the follow up. It like, even though this maybe it hasn't been quote unquote researched or like scientific
Hmm. Yeah.
proven, like all of the things that you're explaining and talking about in other modalities of therapeutic experiences have been. And like,
The somatic ones.
yes, the somatic ones, and even just like the power of community has been really talked about as something that's like evidence-based and healing. And I'm even thinking about, what was it that you said? Oh my goodness, my brain blanked.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. But I think it's just sounds, yeah, in so many ways, even though there's maybe hasn't been a research paper written on this experience, that it would truly help, I think, transform a woman's experience in postpartum. And I've been talking to a lot of people about the word postpartum, and like
Mhm.
postpartum is technically any time after birth. So
We're
you're,
always
yeah,
postpartum.
you're always postpartum, like whether you've had a miscarriage or whether you've had,
Yeah.
a live birth 15 years ago or whatever, you are in postpartum.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for naming that. We are forever changed. And the impacts that can be experienced through community, through ceremony, can be at any level, every level, mind, body, spirit. So I performed one for someone who was experiencing part of her journey in pregnancy and postpartum was blood pressure all over the place. And when we did our integration session, she said, I have so much that's stressful that's going on in my life that I should feel hijacked, but I don't. I just feel energized and my blood pressures are going down. Can we imply causation? I don't know, but
Awesome.
how curious, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that whole the body keeps the score.
Hmm.
And so building in this somatic component and whatever that looks like for people and whatever access or resources you have of getting a massage every now and then and those pieces
Yeah.
you can bring in a massage for part of it would be someone you would hire in to come in, but they are welcome to come. We can get creative. What was one thing that was powerful in mine of helping letting go of a painful story was letter writing. I had my doula and my spouse was there for part of the time, not all of the time. He wrote a letter just witnessing all the strength and power that they witnessed in my laboring, even though it wasn't the outcome I wanted. And that's a letter I'll hold on to my entire life. Another way it can look is writing down pain points and negative beliefs that you have about yourself you want to let go of. We can burn them in a circle, those sorts of things. And
Oh,
I get creative with my ceremony clients.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thought that came back to me was, I imagine there's potentially certain women listening to this being like, I don't have time for that, or
Mm-hmm.
what a privileged thing to do, or
Uh-huh.
how selfish, whatever. Maybe you're not saying that, but I could potentially hear critics saying those things. And I guess I'm sure you have things to say in support of this, but something that's coming
Yeah.
as someone who hasn't even done this ceremony, but just listening to you speak about it, is if you're healing the mother, you're healing the family, right? Because
Yes.
mother is, working to be attuned with the partner, working to be attuned with the baby, working to be attuned with the community. And if mom is out of attunement with herself, how is
Mm-hmm.
she even able to do any of the things that is really asked of her in this journey of motherhood? And so, yeah, I guess that's what I would say to any potential naysayers about this ceremony, or really any care that goes back to the
Mm-hmm.
mother, because yeah, I would argue that mothers are the foundation of society in a lot of ways. So
They are. They are. Yes. And they need nourishment desperately. We need nourishment. And I appreciate you naming that. It's something my own inner critic, I'm constantly battling in my own head when I'm trying to get my butt out of the house to go do that thing I want to do for myself. But I also want to be with my family and my toddler's crying. Like that is real.
mm,
And what I would say to that, which I'm so passionate about, and I think you are too, is what you just framed that when we take care of ourselves as mothers and allow ourselves, I'm talking 4 hours. I'm not talking a week in the Bahamas, though I hope we all do that too, is like trying to give yourself permission for this gift, whatever it looks like, and however you're nourished, be it ceremony or otherwise. because when we're able to fit in self-care and being nourished, we're better humans, better mothers, better spouses. We're just more filled up. And it doesn't have to be for others too. I'm trying to fight that narrative. It can be just for us, but I know it's something us women struggle with. It has to be
Yes.
like for others.
Yes, yes. And
So whatever gets you in the door.
yes, whatever gets you in the door to take care of you, right? Like
Yeah.
the adage around you have to put that oxygen mask on yourself before you can put it on the person next to you. Like it really is important to care for yourself in a variety of ways. And this is just one really great ceremony and excellent way to support yourself and your community.
Yeah. And not shaming
People.
yourself when like that takes years. Sometimes I had a friend say recently putting band-aids on it. Like, yeah, sometimes we have to put band-aids on it, but when there's even a little window of a weekend, it can be powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. So, why do you think this is particularly important for women to hear now in today's world?
I love the question. I might need to think on that. I mean, we're inundated. We are inundated. We are holding so much. We give so much to others. We need to have a balance of receiving in that process, that divine feminine receiving
Mhm.
to continue the flow of give, receive to make it through these wild times we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's really valuable to take care of yourself, not just now, but in general in the future, because the world's not becoming any less complicated as we move through it, right? There's
No,
more things calling our attention, more barriers to receive help or access childcare or, what have you, like
yeah,
taking care of you. Yeah, I think it's fundamental.
absolutely. Yes. When we're doing okay, then we can show up and take action and hold hope in a world where it can be easy to despair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was hoping you might be able to share how people can find you or potentially other resources that you're really loving right now that you want to share with the listener.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lately, I am loving if you're a listener and also a business owner. I was introduced to Renegade Motherhood as a networking opportunity, which is all about doing business like a mom. Obviously, I love this podcast, or I wouldn't be on here. Sanctuary doulas in Boulder, Colorado, all kinds of wonderful resources out there. And I know of other groups as well. So I am also excited to be offering a newsletter. So I hope listeners will check me out if this resonates with you at wildtransformations.com. Wild Transformations with an S at the end is my business. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Wild Transformations. And in the monthly newsletter, I promise not to inundate people's inbox, but just once a month, I will be sharing little raw snippets of my own life of being a mother that'll make you laugh, make you cry, eating chicken nuggets off the floor, just all those motherhood moments. And also sharing resources that are out there to get through this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And all that information is going to be in our show notes. So if anyone wants to find it, feel free to go to the website to find the show notes. And also will be in our newsletter that also comes out. So I hope that everyone really loved what you had to say. I loved what you had to say. So hopefully the audience
Yes.
agrees with me. But thank you so much for being on today, Kellee.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie. It was great to chat.